Hi, Next to Change. Vivian here. I want to talk about abuse and why the abuser chose you. Before I get into why the abuser chose you, let's talk a little bit about the abuser. So, there are three main characteristics that one is that abusers are generally empty inside. They're people that are basically a shell of a person, and a lot of times, very abusive people, they almost seem to not have a soul, and they can fall under categories such as sociopaths, psychopaths, anti-social personality disorders, narcissistic spectrum. So they can fall in all these categories. So that's where the emptiness comes from. So they're empty basically inside, and they're walking around with a mask of a person, but they don't have the material or the substance of your regular average person who's walking around. The second thing is that they resent their victims for the values that they possess. So, because they're empty inside and they're a shell of a person, they resent their victims for the values that they have, for the attributes that they have, which it could be intelligence, it could be physical appearance, it could be that they're a giving person, a sharing person, a logical person, a person of humility, and they could have all these qualities of a person, honesty. They look at your forthcomingness, they look at your authenticity, they look at your transparency. And those are all the things that they don't have. They don't have a lot of those innate intra personal values that a lot of people have. So they see those in you and they resent you for them. They wish they could feel the things that you feel. They wish they could feel empathy. They wish they can feel compassion. But they don't. They really don't have that ability. So they a lot of times will come off like they do because they mirror what you do. They mimic other people. So they come off with a look of stability that's really not there. And it's usually masked in some type of arrogance, in some type of know-it-all, in some type of thing that where they're strutting themselves around. Maybe they do have a good physical appearance, or maybe they are intelligent, or maybe they do have money, or maybe they do have some of the external things that may be trappings for other people. But those are the things that they will capitalize off of and promote those types of things to mask the low self-esteem and the insecurity that they really have about who they are in the world. So when I talk about the abuser, this is what I mean by an abuser, and this is what I'm calling abuse. So there's the psychological trauma, which is the gaslighting, anything that makes you think that you're losing your mind or something's wrong with your memory, or that anything like that. Like they'll say that you said something that you never ever said, and then they'll look at you like, well, of course you said that. They know you didn't, but it's to create doubt in your psyche, in what's going on in your life. It's to create doubt in your thinking. Also, psychological trauma is undermining your confidence. And what they'll usually do is they will do things to wipe your confidence out. So it could be towards your physical appearance. It could be, for example, maybe you're going out with this person on a date, and when they arrive and open the door, they look at you, in either dismay, or they look at you and puzzlement, and and you might say, what's wrong? And they will answer, oh, is that what you're wearing? To automatically undermine your confidence. And the whole thing to undermine your confidence is to put them in a superior position and to put you in an inferior position, because abusers are controlling and manipulating. And if they can put themselves in a superior position, well, then of course it'll be easier to manipulate you. Psychological trauma is also them showing up at your house. If it's a guy and he's showing up at your house with perfume on, he's showing up at your house with glitter on, or makeup on. They know they're coming over your house, and they know they have all these things. They don't care. It's psychological trauma that they are inflicting on you. Also, another psychological trauma behavior is that they will disappear. You may have had plans with them, or you may meet with them every day at 5 o'clock, and suddenly they're nowhere to be found, and you call them and their phone is turned off. That's psychological trauma. If you're with someone and they gawk and flirt with other people in front of you, in your presence, psychological trauma. Also, threatening to take away something from you in order to get what they want. So if they think that you want to go on a vacation and something comes up and they want to disappear, or they want to go somewhere where they've promised they're not going to go anymore. So what they'll do is, when you confront them with that, the argument will be, and you want to go on vacation, see, we can't get along. That's why I don't want to go on vacation with you. And if we can't get along, then we can't go. So they're threatening the vacation that you want so that they can get to do what it is they want. So again, psychological trauma, a manipulation tactic. Another part of abuse that the abuser uses is verbal abuse, which consists of yelling, screaming, derogatory remarks, insults, rudeness, sarcasm, and name calling. So those are all forms of verbal abuse. And then there is physical abuse, or physical violence. That creates, you being with the abuser eventually will create a dynamic of trying to please someone who cannot be pleased. The abuser cannot be pleased, but they create a dynamic. It's something that even goes into like this, a trauma bond or Stockholm syndrome, where they create this reign of terror, with their victim, and the victim is always trying to please the abuser, and again, who cannot be pleased. So you end up creating attachments with this person, even though they may be harming you. Again, it's all psychological, and it all comes together, and it's a skill that most abusers have honed. Now I'm going to talk about the 6 reasons why your abuser chose you, or why the abuser chooses you. The first one is because you're nice, to a fault. Usually they like the nice person. Again, it goes back to those values. So you might be a person that's charitable, you're full of empathy, you're full of compassion, and you aim to please. So that's one reason you are nice to a fault. The second reason is that you have weak boundaries. So there's no yield or stop signs. So they basically can do whatever they want to do. And even if you had boundaries, they're weak because they push them, push them, push them, push them, push them until you don't have any boundaries. And then they do the opposite and they create boundaries for you to entangle you with a yoke of bondage. The third thing is that they chose you is because you have beliefs or principles that are harmful or that can be harmful. So they will pick someone who believes turn the other cheek, and they might have a wrong or misunderstanding of that principle of turning the other cheek. So they want that. You may be the kind of person that forgives, and you just keep forgiving and you just keep giving them chances after chances after chances because that's your principle, that's your standard, that's your belief. And or you might be loyalty always. I'm loyal to the end. I'm committed to the end. When I commit, I commit. And you can do that to a fault. While all those traits are good, they're not good when they fall into the hands of the abuser. The fifth thing is that you demonstrate neediness. You jump right in with no vetting. That's neediness. Or you jump right into it. You just met this person and you're cooking for them every day. You're doing their laundry. You're doing this, you're doing that. And then again, you're taking all their psychological trauma. Number 6. The sixth reason why the abuser chooses you is because they know your weaknesses in relationships. You've expressed it. So while some people, you can talk to them and you can tell them about your past relationships, and they will be empathetic and compassionate, and they will listen. They will listen with understanding. The abuser usually doesn't have those traits of empathy and compassion. So they see those behaviors, the things that happened to you maybe in a past relationship that you're sharing with them to create intimacy. They see that as something that they can use to manipulate you. And so those are the 6 reasons that the abuser chose you. There are other reasons. This is not an exhaustive list. So, think about those things and look for red flags in relationships. And if some of those things fit you, those are things that you can change in your life because you can always change. That's what this channel is about. Be the next to change, So just, when you know better, right? They say if you know better, you do better. Know better, do better, and be the best that you can be in any given moment. And the ideal thing to do is to let that best thing that you can be in any given moment, when the next moment comes, that your best is better than it was before. This is Vivian from Next to Change. Be the next to change.